that. Here is that there is a wonderful book by Miriam Wright Edelman, and it's called A Letter to My Children and Yours. And she talks about whose children are these. And in my colleague and mentor, this guy, Rick DeFore, who you see up here on the screen, Rick was, for me, someone who constantly challenged me to make sure I saw all our children, I saw all our students, that I saw learning, as I said before, as something that we must pursue to help every child learn whatever we say that guaranteed and viable curriculum is. And Miriam Wright Edelman said that so much of our tragic and costly failure for our children stems from our tendency to distinguish between our own children and other people's children. Now, I have been fortunate enough to have 3 of my own children, and I have fought for them as they've grown through the K-12 public school system and as young adults, hopefully in a way that's appropriate as a parent. And I have spent most of my career trying to do the same thing for everyone else's child, thinking of them and seeing them as if they were my own. And I think that's part of our challenge, because that can weigh us down if we're not careful. And the only way to balance that burden, let me finish it by telling it to you this way. What is the difference between empathy and compassion? So empathy is when we see students or a group of students who are suffering, and we say, I understand, I have awareness they are suffering. I can see they're suffering, and it bothers me, and I'm sorry for it. So empathy says I'm at least aware that you're suffering, just like Mrs. Armstrong finally came around to the fact that I was suffering as a student in her class sitting in the far back left side of that room. But compassion takes empathy to a different level, because compassion says, I not only see your suffering, I'm not only aware of it, but I will act on it. I will act to relieve that suffering. I will act to relieve that suffering. I will move you to the right front of the room. I will provide these additional supports to catch you up for the 7 months of school you have not had. I will make actions with and work with my colleagues to relieve the suffering that I see of the children that pass through my life. And that's compassion. Now, what happens though, I think when you and I as teachers exercise compassion, and it's kind of the warning that I want to give you in this message today, is that I can take action to relieve your suffering, even if that action is working with someone else to help it happen. But I can get overwhelmed by it if I'm not careful, to where then I'm not strong, I'm not in quadrant 1. And the only balance I know so that I can be the most compassionate teacher I can be when I come to the workplace is to make sure I give myself the selfish time of quadrant 2 time. I give myself the gift of relieving myself from that stress so that tomorrow I can be compassionate again. And that's the message. So I really appreciate